Oh, have I got? Has that thing moved? I think that thing's moved. God, this webcam. I've been having arguments with it all for the last 10 minutes. Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another Battletech Silly Whiz stream on CCG and all that kind of rubbish. I'm sure I'm saying all the right words, just maybe not quite in all the right orders. It's been a long day. It's been a long few weeks and whatever else, so please forgive me. Over the last few weeks, I've started to look at the Arsenal expansion, and we had a look at the missions and how they were 2 clan, 2 inner 5 generic, which actually turned out to be 2 clan opposite ends of the spectrum on Juicy Goodness. 2 very good inner missions, 1 that was basically another inner mission as well, and then a few generic bits and bobs, some of which were quite good for the normal game. Castle Defence is quite strong in the TC Travis card game. For all its quirks and changes, and this makes it better, and it's more like playing with tabletop. Fine, go play tabletop. Why not? Anyway, so last time I did the generic commands, and as you can see, I've put a 5 in the clan box for commands because Arsenal gave the clan 5. Yes, just 5 command cards. And as you can see in the background in that top left-hand corner, one of those is the World Champions card, which wouldn't have been there if he wasn't a Wolf or a clan player. It would have been another Inner Sphere one. So we'll start with the dude himself, the man, the mullet that is Peter Sundholm. There you go. There's his card. 1 cost. 3 tactics, command unique clan wolf, so you can only have 1 of him in the deck, with his little Fenris in the background looking really cool because he won a first world championship, basically had a deck of 6 dashes and a shed load of Fenrises. Might have been a man of war or 2 in there as well, I can't quite remember. And he gives you +1 initiative, which on a grand scale of things, he's a world champion, which shows how good some of these uniques actually are, where they've got 5 initiative. Okay, not quite 5, but you get the idea. And the card says, mech piloted by Mech Warrior Peter may deal any amount of its damage to the target. Use this ability only on a mech, only if that mech is fast, and only if blocked. So, is this amazing? Is this poor? Is this okay? It's probably somewhere in the middle of the extremes. So let's look at what this actually is. As I said, may deal its damage to the target. So long range PPCs and all this, long range 2 in your face. You can deal as much as you want to the target. Obviously, that does depend on what the target is. You can guarantee damage to the stockpile, unless somebody pulls something like a temporary ceasefire or a last stand at Hanover or whatever else it is. Okay, but it's used this ability only if that mech is fast and only if blocked. Well, the block thing, fair enough. Let's face it, if you're not blocked, you're going to deal the damage to the target anyway. So that kind of makes sense, or seems to be a bit irrelevant. And obviously, fast mechs, you pay either a premium for the speed and the damage, or you pay for speed and less damage. So let me quantify that. A fast mech that costs 4 is probably going to do less damage than a medium mech that costs 4, which is going to do less damage than a slow mech that costs 4. Speed has a price, and that fits into the cost of the card. And if you keep the costs the same, something somewhere has to give. Normally it's the damage, because damage is calculated roughly at 1 point or 1 resource per damage. And then there's a few extras on top. Without getting totally complicated. Unless, of course, you want to go and blow the calculator out and just change it and do your own things to make the numbers fit the mechs that you want. Okay. And that mech has to be fast. So that is quite restrictive. However, there are a couple of cases where this gets rather good. Okay, and the one that springs to my mind, which I'm going to have to go and search for, so just let me take these away for a moment. The one that springs to my mind is, let's take Arsenal off, is actually the Grendel Prime. 7, 1A, 2M, 2T, a 165, overheat 2+2. The crazy thing with this is that this is a resource killer if it overheats. It hits the magic 7. So if you slap Mech Warrior Peter on one of these, it can deal 7 damage to the target, whether you block it or not. So that pretty much guarantees you a resource kill in this case. Or if you just want to go for the stockpile, 7 damage to the stockpile is quite a snotty hit and nothing that you wouldn't want to wish on anybody. Probably your worst enemies and all that kind of jazz. So sticking it on something like a Grendel Prime may be quite advantageous. You can do that. You can do that quite early. If you go second and go 1 unit, 2 more resources, you can get a 4-cost unit out. If you then play, you can then play, say, something like a Jenna, put 1 on this, add a few more resources. You can get this out on turn 3 if you really try for it. And obviously Peter is another one in that category. 1 Grendel, 2 resources, tap 3 to give you 4, and then you need another resource, tap all of that to put Grendel out, 1 for Mech Warrior Peter. You can have this on the table on turn 3, or at least the end of turn 3. And that combo, okay, yes, you've got to draw the unique pilot that is Peter. But in itself, it's quite good. It could be used as quite a reasonable end game card. If you've got a deck with multiple fast mechs in, you are effectively looking at long range, whatever that is, 4. But it says any amount of its damage, which means if you push that up with, say, a push in the envelope, or in the Grendel's case, maybe a risky combat jump because the 2 armor prevents overheat. Yes, I know you board game players will be crying at that, but it's a card game mechanic. That's how it works. Prevent a damage. So just like ECM preventing overheat doesn't work, does it? But that's the mechanics. So you can actually push that through if you need to and end the game. It could be quite good in draft. It's just the stipulation of a fast mech. Otherwise, it's just a pilot that gives you +1 initiative and costs you 1 3T, which if you compare that to, say, something like, I don't know, let's look at Grey Death Pilot, 3 initiative, 0 3T, something like that. You can see how much is costed into that ability, which is tied to a fast unit. So worth considering. Maybe not everybody's cup of tea or choice, but there we go. So there's Peter. Okie dokie. Right, if you want to reliably get Peter and pull him from your deck, one of the methods of doing so is Trial of Bloodright. This angry looking guy here who seems to have a problem with an Anubis headpiece for anybody that's been to Egypt. This is a 1/3 politics command card that says scrap Trial of Bloodright when it's revealed, search your stockpile for any pilot card, deploy that card and activate it without paying its construction costs. Well, that's quite nice. This doesn't count as a deployment, shuffle your stockpile. Okay, well, I'm glad it doesn't count as a deployment because I've already spent one on Trial of Bloodright. But to be honest, search for a pilot is quite nice. Put it into play without costing it. That's very nice. But you're scrapping this card for it, which kind of makes it feel like a weak Solaris Contacts. you've got to run a lot of these for it to be reliable. And which pilots are you going to pull? You need something quite specialist. There is one case where I've seen it used, and it was actually in a deck by myself, which was the loose Daishi deck, the third one on the great list of things to do with your Daishi on a night out. And if I can just see if I can tell you which number that is. He says, doing a quick search, a loose Daishi is number 28 on my channel if you want to have a look at that. But this Trial of Blood Right basically allows you to pull the loose cannon where you want, because you're playing Ark Royal Defence Cordon and you've got politics coming out of your ears and nose and everywhere else. The problem with this card is politics. Clan are particularly bad at politics, or a lot of their mechs are AMT, or if you can get them down to A and T, you're doing really well. They don't have the politics resources or some of the skills, or sorry, some of the cards that things like Lau have, or Steiner, for example, and they're not very well suited for it. This ability to pull a pilot out, and it being any pilot, is quite nice, because you could pull out a number of pilots that are quite good. Let's have a look at who that could be. Let's take doesn't contain BT Tactics. We don't want all of those in there. You could pull Aletha out, which she's quite decent. You can pull the original Bjorn out. Not Command Bjorn, but the original Bjorn. Paying 1 to pay 3T in place is quite reasonable. You can pull Martha out. She's quite nice. You can pull Peter out. You can pull Tash, the Black Widow herself. She's quite expensive, so paying 1 politics for her is really good. If mech piloted by her is scrap, roll a die, you can get her back. She keeps coming back like a bad case of some sexually transmitted disease. Fair enough. Phelan, you can get him. He's got a reasonable utility on him, but he's not overly used in that respect. Basically, it's a temporary ceasefire. You can get Rystar to recycle your missions. Of course, the trouble with that is you're paying lots of politics, which we'll talk about in a second. Solhammer is okay. Star Commander's pretty good. Or you can go get Vlad. There you go. So the thing that comes to my mind here is that you could play with this in a non-tactics deck. I'm not quite sure why you'd want to, but you could use this in a politics-based deck instead of tactics and use it to pull pilots. The trouble here is you probably want between 3 and 5 or 6 of these, and then you've got to have the same amount of pilots, which kind of takes up your command and mission slots. And the surprise of the mission is, yeah. And this is telegraphed because it's done in your deploy phrase. You stick the pilot straight out. It could be used in an ARDC deck, not the loose Daishi deck that I did, but possibly a politics-based one, where you could pull this to pull a pilot onto a unit and then use Hasty Alliance to get the unique you want, because the pilot you've pulled with this is unique. It's overly convoluted and complicated, and I'm not quite sure what you would pull and what you would put in play. Maybe you could play with Inner Sphere mechs, clan mechs with no buyouts. So we're talking the Little Assassin, Fenris A, Thor Prime, Centurion 9A, not the D, Guillotine, no, not the Guillotine, the Grasshopper, sorry, that kind of thing, which don't require any buyouts, and then lots of other stuff. Of course, in League, or the TCG, where there's no buyouts on practically anything, and the usefulness of assembly has been stomped into the ground, then this might allow you to just play a politics and tactics deck, pulling all the pilots you want. It kind of has a use, but it's not used, and it's kind of more gimmick and combo style card. If you can pull the right pilot with it, it's value for money, not paying any of its costs, and away you go. It's just, what would you pull and why, and aren't there just better options anyway? Too limiting. Okie dokie. Next up, Trial of Grievance. The Peter Sundholm God card, often referred to as Trial of God. It is actually an awful lot of card in one, so to speak. It costs nothing. It has no buyouts. Any clan can play this, okay? And the text of the card says, scrap Trial of Grievance when it's revealed. Gain assembly, logistics, munitions, politics, and tactics until the end of turn. You may deploy Trial of Grievance revealed to make an additional deployment. Draw a card when you activate Trial of Grievance. Okay. So this is used as a crutch, a helping hand up the ladder for clan. Okay. And what it does is it removes all your asset buyouts. All those A, M, and T's on those clan units are ignored for a turn when you deploy this. You cost you nothing to deploy it. It's a zero cost card, and it gives you its deployment back, and you draw a card and cycle your deck. It's value for money wise. It does about 8 things if you count each of the assets, the draw, the free deploy, and the lack of cost. Okay, Peter used it to great effect in order to help him get the earlier units out. If you look at the cost curve in his decks, it was Dasher, then Fenris Prime. Dasher Prime is assembly, and then Fenris Prime had 1M, 1T buyouts as well as the 1A, which wasn't the end of the earth if you paid 4 for it. But if you were struggling at that point, Phantom B I think is 1M, 1T, and 1A as well, but Phantom A is 3A, 3M, 3T. So this was used to help and reduce those buyouts, and also you get a draw, which means you could draw into that asset anyway. Okay, if you want an example of how not to use this card, there's a Travis versus Enklebury match where Travis does not play this, and he probably should do in order to cycle the deck and gain the assets and gets units out, and he keeps them in his hand, and he ends up black marketing for them for a superior nav when it should have been a Phantom D or something or other like that. So just a point there to say it's okay putting cards in decks, but if you don't understand how the deck operates, even if it is the World Champions deck, you don't understand how it operates, you don't play it very well. So there you go. It is good. It has to be used in the right deck. Peter loved it for those reasons, and that's obvious. It can get you out a hell of a hole at various points. Okay, and all the other bonuses. All right, so that's Trial of God. Trial of Position, which does look like there's lots of people congratulating each other for all wearing the same jumpsuit as a bunch of pilots. Trial of Position, 1/3 politics. Again, another great politics card. Scrap it when it's revealed. Search your stockpile for any mech card. Show that card to all players and deploy it. This does not count as a deployment. Okay, so it's a free deployment, but you've paid 1 for this card anyway. So that does cost you a deployment that turn. Shuffle your stockpile afterwards. So it allows you to choose a mech. Now, unless there's something you're particularly after, then most people just run enough of them to draw them. Maybe it would be better if you had a draw engine. and it's 1/3 politics. So you either got to pay 4 for it to draw a unit you want, which could be advantageous. If you think about something like the Merchant Cast Improved Construction Facilities type deck, where you've got resources coming out your ears, paying the buyout on this to draw the card that you're particularly after. Maybe it's something big and honking, or has no buyouts and you can slap it on the table quite quickly, actually has a potential place. But that's the only place I can really think of it being used, because of the politics buyout. So I'm not leaning towards these being overly great. I mean, Peter's all right for what he is. The two that we've talked about are okay, but they're very, very niche. Trial of Grievance you could throw in most clan decks and it would be quite useful. Next up, Trial of Possession, or basically how to screw all the clan in one card, or one of the ways to screw clan in one card. 7 for politics, makes it quite expensive. Scrap Trial of Possession when it's revealed. Gain control of any non-unique clan card an opponent controls and untap it. Any non-unique clan card. So provided it doesn't have the unique keyword and it has the clan keyword on that card, you can get it. So that could be your opponent's day sheet. I'll let you build a day sheet and then play 7 for it. I strongly consider, this was in the sideboard for the big mech bonanza that Travis was trying to get off the ground. 7 for politics. I played an ARDC deck. My sideboard was 4 of these. In fact, I think my sideboard was possibly 6 of these, because I could just steal his. Let him play some small stuff and then stick a big one on the table, and I'll steal it with this. Thank you very much. So there are lots of ways to screw that over, and in that respect, it's very powerful. Obviously, it can only be played by clan, but that also means it can be played by Ark Royal Defense Cordon. And it also relies on your opponent playing clan, which is why it's never going to make a main deck, because let's face it, you put this in a deck and your opponent plays Inner Sphere, it's a dead card. The only thing you're going to do with this is feed it to the black market connections machine. Whereas if it's in a sideboard and you can pull it in when you know what they're playing and then screw them right royally with it, then it has a lot of power. Okay. The other card that is totally bonkers is Trial of Refusal. And I always looked at this picture and I thought the woman in white had hit this one on the chin. I'm not sure what's going on here with this artwork, but it looks like a barroom brawl in Kai or Victor's harem to me. But hey ho. 1/3 politics again, which seems to be all the thing. Scrap when revealed. Until the beginning of your next turn, clan mechs cannot go on missions. When you activate Trial of Refusal, gain an additional point. This card is bonkers in some respects. I mean, it totally screws clan. If you're playing Ark Royal Defense and you're playing politics left, right, centre, this is your sideboard, 4 of these in case your opponent plays clan. Okay, and of course because you're in Ark Royal, that's Steiner and Wolf, you have access to Melissa. You play 1/3 politics for this, you've got politics coming out of your ears. You play 1 for this, your opponent cannot attack. You put Melissa down, you return this to your hand using Melissa's ability or black market. He cannot attack the following turn. And meanwhile, you've had a deployment and used your resources and done something else. And you've done the same and done the same and done the same. So this card just completely locks clan down. Completely. Okay. And you can play it on your opponent. There's possibly even a combined deck here the invading clans with lots of mechs that don't have any resource buyouts, Fenris A, Thor Prime, etc., etc. Maybe you have a smattering of one of the other assets, and this to lock clan down totally, trial of possession to steal his unit and then attack him with it, whatever else. It's niche because it only works against clan. As I said, the best place for this card is the sideboard. But if you know the guy's going to play, I don't know, Ghost Bear or Jade Falcon, you can completely tech against it and completely destroy it, because these 2 or 3 cards here lock them clan down completely when played there. It's just they are unreliable in that respect because it's based on the fact that your opponent plays clan. And if everyone's playing in a sphere vehicle swarms, then nobody does. So there you go. Simple as that. Those are the 5 clan cards that were clan command cards even that were included in Arsenal. Aren't they a wonderful bunch? They are clan cards that screw over each other. The warring clans, the fighting clans. It sounds like they're not worried about the inner sphere. All they want to do is beat the hell out of each other. They sound like a bunch of Scousers out of Liverpool. All they want to do is fight with each other. Trial of Grievance is really good. Mech Warrior Peter's decent. The other 2 screw things over. The other things have a little bit of utility, but the politics element in this just absolutely slaughters them, which is why they didn't really see a lot of play or a lot of function. And at this point, the card base was getting into a large, diverse amount. We're talking at probably close to 700 cards here. And it is recognised that about 700, 800 cards is where you start to have problems if you exceed that. Because of combinations, no one can predict the lack of combinations of this, that and the other. Too much diversity, too many things that break each other. If you think about the game kind of being rock, paper, scissors, then you've always got rock, paper, scissors times 20. So my rock beats your paper and your scissors, but your rock beats someone else's paper versus their scissors and whatever else. And you've got a huge loop, and there's too much deck diversity. So they kind of went under the radar. So there we go. That's that little chunk. That's that little snippet of Arsenal. I'm going to try and do another one this evening. I'm a bit tired, but I'm going to try and get another recording in. I'm not sure if it's going to be a large amount of cards. It's probably going to be a small amount. And then I will, when I'm a little less knackered, go on to some of the bigger chunks. So anyway, thank you for listening. If you like it, then hit the like button. If you've got any comments, then make the comments there. And if there's anything you want, card reviews, deck reviews, if you fancy a game sometime, I'm happy to do that. Let me know and we will see what we can do. But until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all soon.